This episode was co-produced by Holy Code, your go-to partner for all software development needs. From proof of concept to highly complex software, to building nearshore teams or delivering the optimal ERP solution, Holy Code is what you need. They're experts in startup development and have helped many of our former guests supercharge their technology and make the world a better place, one line of code at a time. So if you're looking for support with scaling your tech product, head over to holycode.com and get started today. That's holycode.com.
Part of the work that I was doing, I think I was motivated while doing it, because as you said, I was only 21 years old and I was doing such important work with big stakeholders. And back then I really felt like a superwoman. I was very motivated while doing it. I also built this conviction that even though I'm young, even though there are many difficulties, I can do it.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Sylvan.
Loulia, a very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Great to be here. Thank you very much, Sylvan, for having me.
You're the co-founder and CEO at Rea Diagnostics, a startup producing a non-invasive technology capable of predicting preterm birth. A really, really important topic that we're going to talk about. Before we do so, I actually want to start with your personal background. You're originally from Syria. That's also where you did your bachelor's, where you had your first job and also built your first business. But at the same time, there was a very sad time that started. There was a war that started in your country. So how was it to go through all of these formative experiences while the war broke out?
Yes, that's true. I finished my studies in pharmacy. I started my first job and then created my first business. All of that while a war broke out. Well, of course, it wasn't easy. It's hard to go through all of this during the war. It was very hard to see the place where you were happily raised get destroyed because of the war. And you also see along with that your hopes, your dreams, your future in that country also being destroyed. But as they say, looking at the bright side, hard times do create strong people. So I guess for me personally, a lot of my drive and my will came from being positive, from trying to always find a meaning out of what I was doing, and always finding a way out despite all the difficulties that I was living. And I managed. And I think also a big part of it is knowing that eventually life goes on. So you really have to just get up and continue.
Wow, that's very deep. And I assure that this also probably makes you a better entrepreneur, going through this horrible time, I guess, to keep going and to not lose hope and faith in a certain way.
Yes, I guess. I think a lot of the times while we are going through rough situations, I know deep down that we're going to do fine, we're going to succeed, it's okay, it's a hiccup, we're going to manage. Yeah, I think I always have this inner voice talking to me.
That's very strong to have that. Let's talk about your first business. It was called BM Farm. You imported and distributed nasal sprays, but also other medicine. And you were just 21 years old when you built that. What motivated you to start your first business right there?
Part of my work as a pharmacist, I was noticing, seeing the shortage of medicines that were in the market back then. There were some key medicines that were missing. They were also under high demand. Of course, the shortage was because of the ongoing conflict. And as part of my work every day, I saw how much of a big negative consequence it had on people's lives. And I really wanted to help. So I wanted to help. That was my biggest motivation. And I also, of course, saw the business opportunity. So I said, why not? Let's try to do it. With a small investment, I created this business that was importing these key missing medications and distributing them and selling them all around the country. It was a very enriching experience. I was working very hard to get the approvals from the medical authorities in Syria. I was also working with international partners, companies, with local distributors, the main public hospitals in Syria and many medical key opinion leaders. And I think that also, like, part of the work that I was doing, I think I was motivated while doing it, because as you said, I was only 21 years old and I was doing such important work with big stakeholders. And back then I really felt like a superwoman. I was very motivated while doing it. I also built this conviction that even though I'm young, even though there are many difficulties, I can do it, I can succeed. And it was a very interesting experience of my life. Now, when I look back at it, I always smile.
I love this because it seems like you uncovered or discovered what you were capable of doing and building yourself. That's amazing.
Very true. Yes.
And then I'm sure there were also plenty of learnings along that way. So how did that first venture, BM Farm, then come to an end? And what did you sort of take away and learn from it?
Well, unfortunately, it came to an end because the war continued in Syria and life and the economic situation was getting harder day by day. And particularly for my business, the Syrian lira was losing value. And since I was doing business with international stakeholders, simply the business was not sustainable anymore. So I decided to stop my activities. And at the same time, back then I was just around 23 years old. So I also had a life plan of doing a master's. So I decided that it was about time to move on. I went abroad to pursue a master's.
Amazing. Before we talk about your master's, I wonder your entrepreneurial drive. You know, you started your first business very young. You have your second business up and running right now that you're building. Where does your entrepreneurial drive come from? Did you have anyone in the family who also was setting up and running their own businesses, or who inspired you to eventually become an entrepreneur?
A big part of it is my family. I was born and raised in a family of entrepreneurs. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. He was in the textile, so fabrics and yarn business for years. Then my father is an entrepreneur, my uncle as well. So since I was a kid, I was exposed to that environment. And particularly, my father was very keen on training me to become a businesswoman. He really wanted to kind of transfer all his learnings, all his experiences to me and my brother. And I remember since I was really like in my teenage years, my father was bringing me with him to his office. He was also letting me assist him with some parts of his business. So I really saw firsthand how he was doing business, how he was negotiating deals, prices, building relationships with his customers, also with his business partners. And I was very motivated to learn. And I think, yes, a big part of it comes from that. And also reflecting a bit more, I think for me personally, it's very rewarding having the chance to really create something from scratch and knowing that it has the potential, it has the future potential of changing the lives of millions around the world and really making a difference. It is very self-rewarding.
Amazing. And this entrepreneurial bootcamp, as it sounds, that your father gave you, sounds like a great additional education that you got right there.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's talk about the learnings of your first venture. What were they?
I had a lot of learnings, both on the professional side and on the personal side. Professionally, of course, I learned how to go through the medical trading business. I learned how to get the correct licenses in place, how you talk to customers, how you negotiate deals, how specifically to promote medical products, because I was doing the medical rep, the sales rep myself. So I was going around really promoting to private doctors, private clinics, and I learned how to speak their language, showing them the clinical evidence of these new medicines that I was bringing to the market. And also how different it was from promoting these same medicines to the public hospitals, because they have different metrics that they look at before taking a decision to purchase. Even if the medicine is missing, they still have to go through internal metrics that make sense for them, economically speaking, right? So a lot of it was really, really interesting to take on. And I think it helps me a lot in my current business. because we also are developing medical technologies. We want to promote our technology to doctors, to public hospitals. And moreover, personally, my personal learnings is that I like doing business. I enjoy being an entrepreneur. I think this is also part of why I decided to embark on my current journey, why I was very motivated to start working on Rea Diagnostics, because I have these really good memories from my previous business. It gave me this push. It gave me a great confidence in myself, in my ability to do business. And, knowing that you can always be active, you can always be innovative, productive, to try to work on things that make a difference.
100%. And it sounds like all your learnings together sort of led to the career that you're having today with your own company again.
Very true.
So then you went on to do your master's degree at the University of Bologna in Italy, but in collaboration with the EPFL in Lausanne. Was that also your first contact with Switzerland?
It was my first time in Switzerland, yes. I came here to do my master thesis on a project that was developing a portable PCR in the theme of personalized medicine. I came here to work on this project. I was very interested by it, and I had always also heard of how good technology and science is in Switzerland. So I was really curious as a pharmacist and as a biotechnologist. I wanted to really go there for some time and see how people are doing it. And yes, that was my first contact with Switzerland.
What then made you stay after this initial first contact?
What made me stay is that I met my co-founder. He came to the same host lab where I was, and he had the idea of this wearable device to monitor women's health care. And I was really impressed by the idea. He was looking for a co-founder with my background. So we had complementary backgrounds, complementary expertise. And once we started working together, we worked very well together. There was a great, we instantly formed this great team, and it was obvious for me that it is worth it for me to stay and try to make this work.
That makes a lot of sense. Your co-founder is Eric Garcia, and he had gone through a personal tragedy that inspired him to actually research pregnancy care technology. How did you personally become interested in that field?
Well, we wanted to focus on pregnancy care. As you said, my co-founder already had the pregnancy care in mind. And as part of our efforts to specifically choose an indication for the technology, I was going around hospitals in Switzerland to do interviews with women. And I went to the head of the obstetrics university in Lausanne, the CHUV, and I talked to women that has been hospitalized for the risk of a preterm birth. I talked to many of them, and I really listened to their stories. And maybe I can share with you one of the stories. One woman was hospitalized there for 2 months. She had spent the past 2 months on a bed in the hospital because she had a high risk of preterm birth, right? But wait, it's still not over. She still had 1 extra month to go. She still had to be hospitalized for another month, and she had a baby at home. So imagine how much of how difficult that was for her. She was really telling me that her life has changed upside down since she was hospitalized. She had to take a break from her work. Even her husband had to quit because he wasn't allowed to take a 2-month holiday because he had to stay home with their kid. And it was really such a big mess. And just listening to that and reflecting on it, I think it really made me very angry. Like, how come there is no tool on the market today, regardless of all the advancements we have in technology and innovation in science? How come there's no tool that allows women to be monitored safely from home? It's really the sad reality of women's health. So I think from there, it was very easy for me to say, yes, preterm birth is the indication. We should go for that. There is a big unmet need. It's a life-saving technology. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and there you can really have a huge impact on women's lives and potentially whole families' lives, as we just learned from your story that you shared.
Absolutely. But that's also not talking about how difficult it is to have a preterm baby. Early preterms, they really suffer from, if they survive, they suffer from lifelong complications that really makes it very hard for the family, and also maybe cost-wise speaking on the society, on the healthcare system. So we're really missing a lot of innovation in that field.
So really time to bring some innovation to that part of life. And you created a pad which can read biomarkers in vaginal discharge that predict actual preterm birth. So the medical field was already aware of these biomarkers, but before you came in, they had to go to the hospital, as we just learned, right? So how did you actually then develop that product? How did you put that into reality and say, hey, we know that this problem is already out there and it's solved with biomarkers, but you have to go to the hospital. We now want to change that you can actually do that and monitor it from home. How do you come up with that solution that then also led to a potential solution?
As you said, Sylvan, biomarker testing is already there. Biomarkers in science for preterm birth has already been identified for years now. They have been tested, they have good results, and they're also very well known in the medical community. But then the bottleneck is really how this test is performed today. It is limited to an invasive test. Why? Because the sample that is tested is cervical sample. This means that to collect a cervical sample, you have to use a speculum, you have to be a trained physician, and you can only do it in the hospital. So there is no way that women can do this test themselves at home. So really reflecting on that, we said, why can't we use innovation and technology to bring this same powerful biomarker test to home, for a home test in a friendly format where women can test themselves continuously, regularly, when they can keep an eye on the levels of these biomarkers and give doctors the chance to really do something when there is a predicted risk.
And, biomarkers, you are coming from the medical field, but for someone who's not coming from that field, it might be difficult to understand what biomarkers are. So first of all, what are biomarkers, and can they, for instance, also help you to prevent something like a miscarriage, for example?
Well, biomarkers are proteins that when they are detected in higher concentrations, it could be linked to a higher risk of a preterm birth. In particular, biomarkers for preterm birth are a lot. There are many that has been identified so far, and mainly I can speak of placental alpha microglobulin 1, insulin-like growth factor binding protein, fetal fibronectin. They are all powerful biomarkers that help doctors really indicate this risk of a preterm birth. And to answer your question about miscarriage, miscarriage is a different indication for our technology. Our biomarkers do not focus on miscarriage, but of course this is something that we would love to expand to in the future.
So there's even much more potential for your application, if I understand that correctly.
Absolutely, absolutely. With our expertise, we can analyze and extract biomarkers of different women healthcare diseases directly in vaginal secretions of women. So yes, we do have a wide portfolio of women healthcare concerns that we want to expand to in the future.
Fantastic. So now let's assume that a pregnant woman did the test with your pad at home, and the result is basically the biomarkers show a high chance of preterm birth. What happens then? What are the next steps that the pregnant woman should take?
Very good question. Well, once a test turns out positive, the pregnant woman is highly recommended to go visit her hospital or her doctor so they can do all the additional examinations for preterm birth. And then it's a case by case. So the doctor decides what to do next. For example, he could decide either to hospitalize her if she is really at a high risk of preterm birth and she will deliver in the next few days. They could administer medications, for example, like tocolytics that could delay birth for some hours or some days. And in this time span, they could give ACS, antenatal corticosteroids, and these are medications that help the babies mature their organs, the brain, the lungs. This means that they are born more ready for life. They are more independent. They can breathe on their own. They don't have as much problems with their neurodevelopmental system. And this is really key. Today in science, it has been proven that even one more day that the baby spends in the womb could have life-changing consequences on that preterm baby's life.
And now we see how everything fits together, right? Because Rea Diagnostics basically helps you to discover that early on, so you still have options to play around with to give the baby the best chance of survival and having a healthy and good life.
Very true. It's really giving this early alert, giving this first red flag, saying to pregnant women, hey, there is a risk, telling doctors, listen, there is a risk there. Let's try to do something. Let's try to save that preterm baby, or even give them much higher chances for a more normal life.
So now I also wonder, as we learned how your solution works, at what stage of the go-to-market process are you right now in June 2023?
Today, we are still developing the smart pad, and at the same time, we're planning to spin out to market a first product, which is a vaginal self-test for a risk of preterm birth. It works the same way. Through this vaginal swab, the test detects biomarkers indicative of preterm birth. And where are we on that? We have developed it, also tested it preclinically. It has shown really excellent results when tested on women. And today we are preparing clinical trials and hopefully planning to launch it by end of 2024.
Amazing. So still a bit of testing to do, but the end is near to really push the product live.
It's true. Like all diagnostics, you really need quite some time before you go through preclinical testing, clinical trials, regulatory approvals before you are finally on the market.
And of course, developing such a product, it not only takes time, but it also takes money, obviously, because you need to keep the show going before you can actually make significant revenue with your product. You have raised the 2 million Swiss francs of non-dilutive funding so far. What were these funds used for so far?
Yes, that's true. We got a little bit over 2 million Swiss francs so far from non-equity funding, which has been great support. A lot of it has gone to research on this topic. Unfortunately, in science, in literature, even in industrial efforts, there is very little on vaginal secretions as a diagnostic fluid. So we really had to do research almost from scratch to really understand how you could use this complicated fluid and how you could extract biomarkers from it and further test them in their exact concentrations. It wasn't easy. So a lot of the funds went to research and further to more development and preclinical testing.
Got it. And how far off is your next round? Do you think that you will need an additional capital injection to go to the finish line end of 2024 for the product launch?
Maybe I forgot to say in the past part that a part of the funding also went on growing the team. Today we are a team of 5. We're also planning to expand the team once we obtain the next funding round.
So Loulia, if you look at your products, they show incredible potential. They also severely decrease neonatal mortality and morbidity worldwide. And at the same time, I feel like you're just getting started. There's so much more potential that you see, so much more markets you want to expand to. So what is your goal? Where do you want to take your company?
I really see Rea becoming the brand to go to for self-tests of women healthcare diseases. As I said, now we are fully focused on preterm birth. Our next steps would be other women healthcare concerns like vaginal infections, infertility, endometriosis, menopause, and many others. We strongly believe that the expertise we have would allow us to easily expand to these other markets. And I really think that with the right support, with the right funding, we could quite quickly go there.
Amazing. So a very exciting future ahead of you, that's for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. We see it coming. We're working very hard to make it happen.
Amazing. So to wrap up today's episode, we also prepared some rapid fire questions for you. I give you a short question or different options to choose from, and you have to answer in ideally one sentence. You ready?
All right, let's go.
Let's go. What do you miss the most about Syria?
Tough one. Old town, I guess, and family and friends gatherings. Yes.
Yeah, of course. And what do you love the most about Switzerland?
Nature. It's an easy one.
Sure. And talking about nature, do you prefer lake or mountains?
Lake.
Easy choice.
Easy.
Are you more of an early bird or a night owl?
I would love to be an early bird, but because of long working hours, I am a late owl.
So late owl forced by the job, basically.
Yes, and a forced late owl.
The last one for you today. What would you tell young biotechnology students today?
I would tell them to do a startup, to be innovative, be creative.
I love that because your journey serves as a big inspiration for that, to start their own company and to really push the boundaries and say, hey, we want to try something new. And I hope that your story that we recorded today inspires more people to do so. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Loulia, and all the best for this future and lots of success.
Thank you very much, Sylvan. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.